السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى. أما بعد، رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. رب زدنا علما، رب زدنا علما، رب زدنا علما نافعا. آمين. We are talking about skepticism in the Western thought. We said that the methodology of doubt or skepticism, it lies at the core of Western civilization and thought. And we discussed about two main strands of skepticism in Western thought: the ancient Greek skepticism and its reappearance in the Renaissance skepticism. The Western scholars have debates about the skepticism in the medieval period. Did it disappear to appear in the Renaissance, or was it present in the thought of the minority from the philosophers in the medieval period? This is a topic of debate between the Western philosophers, particularly who have focused on the medieval thought. From the philosophers who are of interest to us, or who is of primary importance, as we have discussed before also, is the French philosopher who is considered the father of modern Western philosophy, Rene Descartes. As we have discussed, there are different strands of thought about this mas'ala. We have philosophers who are from the skeptical school of thought. There are others who have criticized the philosophers who claim to be skeptics. And there are different strands in philosophers. We cannot go into the details about everyone. We have, after René Descartes, we have the Western philosophers who took a different turn. The foundation is the same, but these are different manifestations. We have empiricists who adopted the empirical methodology, they developed it, so on and so forth. But we cannot discuss all of them. We will focus on René Descartes in today's session and understanding the influence on René Descartes. We talked about the Muslim thought about this mas'ala. We said that the seeds of this thought, they lie in the discussions of Mu'tazila. But the first main scholar or the main theorizer of the methodology of doubt is the great Imam al-Ghazālī, rahimahullah. He explained this mas'ala in his treatise, which is from his last works, al-Munqidh min al-Dhalal, deliverance from the error. And this book talks about different fields of knowledge and the experience of Imam al-Ghazālī with those fields. He explains that he studied all main fields of human knowledge: religion, religious knowledge, and non-religious knowledge, secular knowledge. And he concluded that no method can take us to certainty. And there is only one field of knowledge which can reach to certainty, and that is tasawwuf. And of course, this is all about epistemology. So the epistemological method which can take us to certainty is the methodology of tasawwuf. Yani this is the crux of al-munqidh min al-dalal. So he considered dalal, error, in the other fields of knowledge. So he talks about philosophy, he talks about ilmul kalam, he talks about natural sciences and all other fields. He says none from these fields can take us to certainty. So this is for the first time we have a scholar who theorizes the mas'ala of doubt, or the productive doubt in reaching certainty, by compiling a complete work on this issue. And as I have said, Rene Descartes was influenced. We see the influences very clearly in his works about this mas'ala. And some researchers have even claimed that the Latin translation of al-munqidh min al-dalal was available to Rene Descartes. It has been found in his personal library. So Latin translations of the works of Imam al-Ghazālī were available in 15th, 16th, 17th century Europe. So let's see the influences, and we will try to compare between the work of Rene Descartes and Imam al-Ghazālī. We have Descartes has written many works, but the texts which are important on the mas'ala of epistemology are two: Meditations on First Philosophy and a Discourse on the Method. They have been published together. You can see here they have been published together. Before we enter into the content of this work by Rene Descartes, Discourse on the Method and Meditations on First Philosophy, Rene Descartes. Before we enter into the content, let's reflect on the tartib of the second work, which is Meditations on First Philosophy. Tartib, the order of the masail. Because you will see the influence even in the tartib. He has taken it from Imam al-Ghazālī. So if we go to page 82 of this work, or before we go into the text, you can see the order here. Meditations on First Philosophy. It contains 6 meditations. Meditation 1, concerning those things that can be called into doubt. Meditation 2, concerning the nature of the human mind, that it is better known than the body. Meditation 3, concerning God, that he exists. Meditation 4, concerning the true and the false. Meditation 5, concerning the essence of material things, and again concerning God, that he exists. Meditation 6, concerning the essence of material things and the real distinction between mind and body. Yani this distinction between mind and body and the existence of human mind is better known than the body is also considered a very important contribution of Descartes. This is known as dualism of Rene Descartes. So we will not go into the details. If you reflect on this tartib, you will see it has a resemblance with the work of Imam al-Ghazālī, Kimya us-Sa'ada, this work, which he compiled in Persian. And this work, it summarizes his another masterpiece, Ihya Ulumuddin. Ihya Ulum is very famous. He summarized it in Kimya Saada, which he compiled in Persian. You can see Kimya Saadat. Kimya is Saadat. Saadat is happiness. So how to reach happiness? He compiled, or he summarized Ihya Ulum in this work. If you see the tartib of the first chapter, you will be astonished. You see, we have 4 topics here in the first chapter. The purpose of a Muslim in this world, and we know the Ihya al-Ulum is divided into 4 parts. And this book is also divided into 4 parts. So you see, the first chapters, they resemble the meditations of, or the meditations resemble the first chapters of this work. Unwani awwal, the first topic, dar shinakhtan nafs khawish, and in understanding the nature of the soul. Okay. Unwani dawm, the second topic, dar shinakhtan haq subhanahu wa ta'ala, understanding God, understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third topic, dar ma'rifati dunya, understanding the nature of the world or the worldly things. And the fourth topic is dar ma'rifati akhirat, understanding the last day. So from these topics, only last day is missing, because this is a specific theme in Islamic thought, or Islam generally. And I have said this many times, if you compare between Islam and other religions and thoughts, you will see similarities. You will see similarities. Yani, you will see concept of God, prophethood, religious leaders who must be followed, morality in other religions also, in other systems. But the concept of akhirah, as is present in Islam with all the details, you will not find it in any religion, not in even distorted revealed religions, Christianity and Judaism. You will not find. There is no concept of akhirah. You may find the day of resurrection or doomsday. You may find it in some cultures and religions, but the concept of akhirah, judgment day with all its details, it's only in Islam. So this is something specific with this pillar of Iman, because other pillars you may find some themes in other religions also. Okay, so the last topic does not appear in the meditations, of course, because there is no concept of akhirah. But other topics are there. Understanding the nafs, the reality of the nafs, the nature of the nafs. And of course, when we say understanding the nafs, understanding it in comparison to the body, of course, understanding haqq, Allah, and understanding the worldly things. And now if you go back to the meditations, you find the same thing. After this first meditation concerning the nature of the human mind, which is nafs, that it is better known than the body, concerning God, same, the next, that he exists, and meditation 4 concerning the true and false, concerning the essence of material things, concerning dunya. And in meditation 6, he again talks about the same. Yani this is explanation of the previous one, because concerning the existence of material things and the real distinction between mind and body. So you can see the resemblance in the tartib, in the order of the topics here. Okay, so there is influence of Imam al-Ghazālī on Rene Descartes. If you go to the text, the beginning of the text, you will see as if he has taken directly from Ghazali. So maybe in Tartib, the resemblance is not so sharp, but here the resemblance is very sharp. Now, if we read here, if we read from meditation 1, which is like an introduction to this work. Let me drag it a bit. Yes. So meditations on first philosophy, in which the existence of God and the distinction between the soul and the body are demonstrated. Meditation 1 is concerning those things that can be called into doubt. Rene Descartes explains the beginning of his journey about this mas'ala. He says, several years have now passed since I first realized how numerous were the false opinions that in my youth I had taken to be true, and thus how doubtful were all those that I had subsequently built upon them. And thus I realized that once in my life I had to raise everything to the ground and begin again from the original foundations. This is known as this is called global doubt. So we have two main foundations in the arduous task of examining the beliefs in the Descartesian skepticism: the local doubts and the global doubts. Local doubts, doubting things. When Descartes started doubting the beliefs around him or the things around him, which led to doubting everything, which he says here, I had to raise everything to the ground. Which means I had to doubt everything and begin again from the original foundations if I wanted to establish anything firm and lasting in the sciences. But the task seemed enormous, and I was waiting until I reached a point in my life that was so timely and no more suitable time for undertaking these plans of action would come to pass. So it was enormous, it was arduous task. I had to wait. I had started reflecting on these questions or doubting, or I had treaded the path of doubt in my youth. But I waited for a point in my life where I could undertake these plans of action. I could basically apply the work plan. Now, remember, keep this in mind, because we'll go back to the work of Ghazali. For this reason, I procrastinated for so long that I would henceforth be at fault, were I to waste the time that remains of carrying out the project by brooding over it. So I wasted already. I have thought a lot about this. If I don't undertake the plan of action, I don't start constructing the foundations which I believe can lead to certainty, it would be a wrong thing. Accordingly, I have today suitably freed my mind of all cares, secured for myself a period of leisurely tranquility, and am withdrawing into solitude. Yani, now the time has come when I feel that I can start building this foundation. At last, I will apply myself earnestly and unreservedly to this great, to this general demolition of my opinions. Okay, now this is how he begins. In the youth, I started to tread this path in my youth, but I was waiting for a time in my life where I could undertake these plans of action. Now the time has come. I have freed my mind and I have secured myself a period of tranquility. I am withdrawing into solitude, because he left everything and he went into solitude. And after that, he will reveal his work plan and his ideas in philosophy. Now this is copy-paste from al-Munqidh min al-Dhalal. This resemblance is so sharp that nothing else can be said about this. Imam al-Ghazālī and al-Munqidh min al-Dhalal, if we go to this work and read from it, he says the same thing in the same words. And there are many centuries between Imam al-Ghazālī and Rene Descartes. This is the best version. This is the best edition of al-Munqidh min al-Dhalal, published by Darul Minhaj. If we go to the Muqaddimah of this work, see, al-Munqidh min al-Dhalal wal-Mufsihu bil-Ahwal. The work of Al-Imam al-Mujaddid, Hujjatul Islam wal-Muslimin, Zainuddin Abu Hamid, Muhammad ibn Muhammad ibn Muhammad ibn Ahmad al-Ghazālī, rahimahullah. He died in 505 after Hijrah. He says, after praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Alhamdulillahi alladhi bihamdihi yuftatahu kullu risalatin wa maqala wa salatu ala Muhammadin al-Mustafa sahib al-nubuwati wa risala wa ala alihi wa ashabihi al-hadina min al-dalala. After praising Allah, sending salutations on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family, his followers, he says, he explains that this work is basically a response to a request from a student or a colleague in explaining this mas'ala. Because he says, فَقَدْ سَأَلْتَنِي أَيُّهَا الْأَخُ فِي الدِّينِ. Oh, my brother in religion, you have asked me, أَنْ أَبُثَّ إِلَيْكَ غَايَةَ الْعُلُومِ وَأَسْرَارَهَا, that I explain to you the purpose of knowledge and its secrets, yani epistemology basically. وَغَائِلَةَ الْمَذَاهِبِ وَأَغْوَارَهَا, and the difference of opinion in the madhahib, different schools of thought in knowledge, so on and so forth. وَمَا اسْتَفَدْتُهُ أَوَّلًا مِنْ إِلْمِ الْكَلَامِ, and what I benefited from studying theology, ilm al-kalam. وَمَا اجْتَوَيْتُهُ ثَانِيًا مِنْ طُرُقِ أَهْلِ التَّعْلِيمِ الْقَاصِرِينَ لِلدَّرَكِ الْحَقِّ عَلَى تَقْلِيدِ الْإِمَامِ, and what I understood from the methodology of those who restrict themselves to the Imam, yani the Shia, because Ismaili Shia were very active in his times. He has written refutations on them also. They aspired to create their own state, and they threatened the Khilafah on multiple occasions. So he compiled works against them. I studied their methodology also, which is, so their epistemology is, the certain knowledge is only with their Imam. The Imam, the leader who has been appointed by the Prophet himself or God, what he explains and what he gives is certain knowledge. So I understood understood their method also. وَمَزْدَرَيْتُهُ ثَالِثًا مِنْ طُرُقِ التَّفَلْسُفِ, and the third method which I understood is tafalsuf, falsafa, philosophy, and the different methodologies of philosophy. وَمَرْتَضَيْتُهُ آخِرًا مِنْ طَرِيقِ التَّصَوُّفِ, and what I considered the best method, or what I consider the method which takes us to certainty from the methodology of tasawwuf. Okay, so oh my brother in Deen, you want me to explain all these methods and also the faults, the deficiencies in these methods, and which of these methods takes us to certainty. For this reason, I have compiled this work. Now, after that, you will see the resemblance. Yani the mas'ala of ikhtilaf. Why doesn't these different fields, why can't we understand, why can't we reach certainty from these different methods? There are many reasons. One of the most prominent reasons is ikhtilaf. There is disagreement, serious disagreement between people of intellect, particularly in philosophy, which means no method is certain. Otherwise, there would not be any disagreement. this disagreement, the issue of disagreement, taking to doubt or basing the doubt on the foundation of disagreement, is also a very prominent theme in the work of Descartes. He also says that I doubted because I saw disagreement around me. So this disagreement between different schools of thought, whether they're religious or non-religious, it leads to doubt, or it leads to sincere yearning to the truth. And then he quotes the famous hadith that my ummah will be divided into 72, 73 sects, and only one will be on the right path, so on and so forth. Now, reflect on these words of Imam al-Ghazālī. He says, وَلَمْ أَزَلْ فِي أُنْفُوَانِ شَبَابِ وَرَيْعَانِ عُمُرِي مُنْذُ رَاهَقْتُ الْبُلُوغَ قبل البلوغ العشرين إلى الآن وقد أناف السن على الخمسين أتقحم لجة هذا البحر العميق. From my youth, when I had reached puberty, 20, when I reached 20 years of age, to the present times, when I have crossed the age of 50, I have dared to go deep into this ocean of thought, schools of thought, the ocean of knowledge. أتكحم لجة هذا البحر العميق. يعني I have dived deep into this. I have dived into this deep ocean. Okay. Again, from my youth, I have been thinking about these matters. I have been diving into this deep ocean of knowledge until I reached 50. Okay. وأخوض غمرته خوض الجسور. And I have been doing this with great courage, which means I did not leave any field of knowledge without understanding it. I did not say, well, there is danger in understanding these ideas, I should not read it, I should not study it. No, I doubted everything, basically. He's also saying, I doubted everything, I read everything, I studied everything. لا خوض الجبان الحذور. I did not study, or I did not dive into this deep ocean of knowledge like a coward person, but I studied it like a brave man, يعني جسور, with courage. وأتوغل في كل مظلمة. And I crossed all darknesses. يعني I did not leave any thought, any field, any school without understanding it. مظلمة, even the dark ideas. وأتهجم على كل مشكلة. And I dived into all problems. I studied all problems, even what were considered wrong opinions. I studied everything. وأقتحم كل ورطة. And I, in this process of diving into knowledge, I even considered wrong opinions, mistakes. I studied them. وأتفحص عن عقيدة كل فرقة. In yearning to understand the belief system of every sect or of every group. Now you see the mention of shabab, the mention of youth, till he reached 50, because at this age he also says now the time has come to explain the crux of this matter. This is same, it resembles the work of Descartes. Then he says, وَأَسْتَكْشِفُ أَسْرَارَ مَذْهَبِ كُلِّ طَائِفَةٍ. In search of revealing the secrets of each or every group or sect or their school. لِأَمِيزَ بَيْنَ مُحِقٍ وَمُبْتِلٍ. So that I can differentiate between truth and falsehood. وَمُتَسَنِّنٍ وَمُبْتَدِئٍ. And the follower of Sunnah and the innovator. Okay, so then he explains, I studied all these dominant schools of thought in knowledge in his times. Then he says, وَكَانَ التَّعَطُّشُ إِلَى دَرَكِ حَقَائِقِ الْأُمُورِ دَأْبِي وَدَيْدَنِي. The thirst for understanding the realities of matters was my path. مِنْ أَوَّلِ أَمْرِي وَرَيْعَانِ أُمُرِي. from the early youth. So this thirst and yearning for understanding matters and going deep into the realities was my path. And it was غريزة وفطرة من الله تعالى وضعها في جبلتي. It was in my nature. It was like nature, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had placed. It was like an instinct which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had placed in my nature. لا باختياري وحيلتي. It was not my choice. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had placed this yearning and search and thirst for reaching the haqa'iq, the realities of all matters in my nature. Allah had placed it. حتى إن حلت أني رابطة التقليد, until the rabita, the blind following, the rabita of blind following, the connection of blind following was opened from me. That means I did not blindly follow the opinions and the methods. وانكسرت علي العقائد الموروثة على قرب عهد بسن الصبا. Now again reflect on this. And the aqaid al-mawrutha, the beliefs which I had inherited, the inherited beliefs, they broke for me when I was in early youth. So the beliefs which are inherited from the family, from the society, they all broke because this was my nature. I did not accept them without doubting them or without understanding their realities, without reaching the evidences behind these beliefs. Okay, and now the same thing has been said here. See, and thus I realized that once in my life I had to raise everything to the ground. I first realized how numerous were the false opinions that in my youth I had taken to be true, and thus how doubtful were all those that I had subsequently built upon them. Same thing. But Imam al-Ghazālī says it in a more eloquent way. Because the Arabic of Imam al-Ghazālī is very eloquent. And then he says, you can see a Christian child, he is on Christianity because he's born in a Christian family. You see the Jewish children, they are nurtured on Judaism, and the Muslim children, they are nurtured on Islam because they are born in Muslim families. They don't know. They follow the belief system which they inherit. And I heard he says, وَسَمِعْتُ الْحَدِيثَ الْمَرْوِيَّ عَنْ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. I heard the famous hadith narrated from the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم, in which he said, كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولَدُ عَلَى الْفِطْرَةِ. Every newborn is born on innate nature. فَأَبَوَاهُ يُحَوِّدَانِهِ وَيُنَصِّرَانِهِ وَيُمَجِّسَانِهِ. Then his parents make him a Jew or a Christian or a fire worshipper. And in one narration we have this addition, فَإِنْ كَانَ مُسْلِمَيْنِ فَمُسْلِمٌ. If the parents are Muslim, the child becomes Muslim. فَتَحَرَّكَ بَاطِنِي إِلَى طَلَبِ حَقِيقَةِ الْفِطْرَةِ الْأَصْلِيَّةِ. And I felt this movement in my inner self towards seeking the reality of this innate nature. What is this nature? How can I reach certainty? Because when the Prophet ﷺ said a newborn is born on fitrah, that means fitrah is one of the principles. This concept of fitrah was used by Imam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah in refutation of mutakallimin later on. Okay, in understanding the evidences. So he says fitrah is the best evidence we can take from the texts, and he refutes the aqli, rational evidences, or he highlights the weaknesses in the rational evidences used by the mutakallimin. This is a different topic. So Imam al-Ghazālī says, I yearned for understanding the reality of this fitrah, innate nature, وَحَقِيقَةِ الْعَقَائِدِ الْعَارِضَةِ بِتَقْلِيدِ الْوَالِدَيْنِ وَالْأُسْتَاذِينَ. And the reality of the beliefs which are temporary beliefs, which are acquired by following the parents or the teachers. وَالتَّمْيِيزِ بَيْنَ هَذِهِ التَّقْلِيدَاتِ. And I also wanted to understand the differences between these taqlidat, between these blind followings. Yani maybe we follow an expert. There is difference between following an expert in a field and following a layman. Both is blind following, but when you follow a doctor in a particular cure or a method, it is different from following a layman. Okay, so there is tamyiz, there is difference between taqlidat, which means all taqlid is not rejected in Islam or in human thought generally. So blindly following someone can be good or evil. Okay, so expert opinion, because we don't know, we are not experts of medicine, and we visit the doctor, sometimes he gives a serious advice of a surgery or taking a medicine. This medicine could be poison, we don't know, but we blindly follow him because he's an expert. So I also wanted to understand the differences between these taqlidat, so on and so forth. فَقُلْتُ فِي نَفْسِي. So I said to myself, أولا, and I said to myself, the first step should be إِنَّمَا مَطْلُوبِ الْإِلْمُ بِحَقَائِقِ الْأُمُورِ. My matlub, my goal is to understand the realities of matters. فَلَا بُدَّ مِنْ طَلَبِ حَقِيقَةِ الْإِلْمِ مَا هِيَ. So before I understand the realities of matters, I must understand the reality of ilm first. This is epistemology, understanding the reality of ilm. And then when you say, I know this thing, before you can claim this, you have to understand the nature of knowing. How do you know a particular thing? So he said, before I would understand the realities of things, I said I should understand the nature of ilm first, the nature of knowledge. Then he talks about the types of ilm, which ilm can take us to certainty and which ilm does not, so on and so forth. He also talks about the mahsusat, the sensory perception. Does it lead to certainty or conjecture only? Same topics in the work of Descartes, because he also talks about sensory perception and aql. These are the two main sources of knowledge. How do we know things? By sensory perception. Sensory perception does not lead to certainty. Number two, aql, by rational evidences. Aql also does not lead to certainty. So doubt everything. Okay, this is from the work of Descartes, and he has taken it from here, from Imam al-Ghazālī. Before he goes into different methodologies, philosophy, theology, religion, science, and eventually he reaches tasawwuf, which he considers the best method. The first chapter is about safsata, sophists. This was a group of philosophers in early Greek times who rejected all forms of knowledge. They said knowledge is not possible, even mahsusat. So what we are perceiving by five senses, it can be a dream. Nothing is possible. And this is a very fanatic methodology in philosophy, because if you say nothing nothing can be, knowledge is not possible, nothing can be understood, you have stopped at the first step. You cannot reach higher forms of knowledge after that. And this school of thought was rejected by even Western philosophers, okay, because it is completely a negative form of philosophy. It rejects everything. So this is the first mas'ala which Imam al-Ghazālī discusses here in his work. He says, Al-qawlu fi madakhil safsata wa jahd al-ulum. The opinion about safsata, and jahd al-ulum, rejecting all ulum. Okay, then he talks about mahsusat. He talks about sensory perception and the aqliyat, the rational evidences, the knowledge which is based on aql. So these are some lines from the introduction of al-Munqidh min al-Dhalal. And you can see the resemblance is very sharp. And this issue of solitude also, this issue of solitude, he has mentioned it. Yani Imam al-Ghazālī, we know, he has mentioned it in other works. He left the great Nizamiyya University and he went into solitude. He went into solitude for 13 years. And when he came back, he wrote these works. And we know this treatise, Al-Munqidh min al-Dhalal, is from the last works. So this issue of solitude is also present in, this is a similarity between the work of Imam al-Ghazālī and Descartes. So the methodology of Rene Descartes, if we summarize it, we cannot go into all details, is what they call as ashakku al-manhaji, methodical doubt. We have explained doubt here means productive doubt, which can be used as a foundation for knowledge. So the methodology of Rene Descartes can be summarized in some points. Number one, disbelief or disbelieving in everything. This is called global doubt. And for this, to explain this, he used the famous analogy of the basket of apples. He said, if you have a basket of apples and you know that there are some rotten apples in this basket, how will you separate those rotten apples from the good apples? He said, we will empty the basket altogether. And then we separate the rotten apples from the good apples. And we only take back the good apples. So this is what we will do in epistemology as well. We will doubt everything. And after that, we will take only what is certain. Okay, so this is why this is, I call it productive doubt, because it leads to certainty. It does not stop at doubting everything only, doubting everything and full stop. No. Doubting and then reaching certainty. It's not only about emptying the basket. Emptying the basket and then picking the good apples. Okay, so that's why he explains from the certain beliefs or the good apples we can take back into the basket is the idea of God, the existence of God. Because Rene Descartes, in spite of the criticism against him or his religiosity, he always claimed to be a faithful Catholic Christian. But many thinkers have doubted that. So he says the existence of God is something which can be used as a foundational belief. So this arduous task of examining the beliefs, particularly the empirical belief, which is based on 5 senses, examining it and reaching the point or reaching the fact that empirical belief is not certain. Sensory perception does not lead to certainty. Okay, that's why he compares between the human soul, nafs, and the body. So after this arduous task of examining the beliefs, he reached this famous statement, cogito ergo sum. I doubt, therefore I am. So the only thing which can't be doubted is my own existence, because I'm the doubter. So the doubt exists because the doubter exists. So the existence of the doubter can be the foundation. So he called it foundational belief, which is clear and distinct. And from, as I said, the good apples which can be taken back, the best example is the idea of the existence of God. So we have talked about the importance of this method in Islamic thought. How can we reap it? How can we benefit from it? And what are the meanings of positive doubt for us as a Muslim? And in the thought of Rene Descartes, as I said, there are different strands and different shades of meaning in his works. But I personally am more interested in understanding his educational philosophy, because the modern educational system, it has been deeply influenced by the methodology of Rene Descartes. So I have some points. This is food for thought for everyone. I will not go into the details about educational philosophy. I compiled these points from, and this is summary of what Rene Descartes claimed in educational philosophy. Number one, questioning everything. Nothing is final. There is no certain knowledge, of course. Questioning everything. And by this questioning everything, and this is not a negative method, but a positive one, productive questioning. Like the example of the basket, the apples in the basket. By questioning everything, we have to take the good apples only. We have to reach certain beliefs. He explained a human being, he called a human being a thinking being. A thinking being for him is a being who doubts. Okay? Cogito ergo sum. A being who doubts. So this quality of doubting is the most prominent characteristic of a human being. And this is the foundation of modern educational system, and which has benefited in the area of empirical sciences. There is no doubt. But the mistake, which we explained in the previous session, the mistake is adopting this methodology in metaphysics, in ethics, in other fields of human knowledge. It has benefited in science. It has taken us to deeper realities. It has pushed mankind to understand the reality around them in a deeper way. And human beings have cultivated this understanding in technology, in the great advancement we see around us, which is good. But adopting this methodology in religion, in ethics, in other fields of knowledge is wrong. Another point in educational philosophy of Rene Descartes is learning is a personal quest. And this was against authority, because in his times he saw the struggle in the church between Protestants and Catholics. It was a struggle of authority. So the medieval age was the age of authority, the church. And we know the Renaissance was basically a revolution against the church, against the authority. And this is the foundation of the modern Western thought, on modern Western lifestyle. No authority. No authority. Learning is a personal quest. So from doubt to certainty through personal quest. There is no reality. There is no ultimate reality. There is no ultimate truth. This is a personal quest. You may reach to a certain goal, and I may reach to a different one. Each person is ultimately his or her own teacher. And if you, we don't have time to explain, because this would go to a different way now, explaining the educational philosophy. But if you reflect on these points and apply in what we study in our times, the secular educational system, from the primary standards, you will see these are the principles which are inculcated in the students. Each person is ultimately his or her own teacher. So he believed in progressive education. Progressive education. A student of primary standard studies the human body, and the student of higher standards or the student who specializes in medicine also studies the human body. So a primary student can say, I know human body, and the student of medical science expert can also say, I know the human body, but their knowledge is not same. The haqiqah of their knowledge is not same. This is the concept of progressive education. You don't reach the end. So you, at a lower level of education, you study a particular thing or the reality or limited realities, basic realities of a particular thing. Like we teach the students of primary standard about the structure of the human body, basics, the bones, the organs. We don't go deep. And at a higher level, you study the same thing at a different level of awareness or reality. Progressive education, and it has helped in education without any doubt, in science, in empirical sciences. But this concept of progressive education does not apply in ethics, does not apply in morality, does not apply in religion. Okay. He emphasized mathematical and scientific fields over a purely liberal arts. Because from the good apples, which must be taken back into the basket, is mathematical knowledge. Knowledge which is based on mathematics. That's why he is also considered a great mathematician. He has original contributions to this field. So from the good apples is mathematical knowledge, which we can say that it takes us to certainty. And this is, again, he has taken it. I don't have time to read from all the passages of Descartes, but he has taken it from Ghazālī, Imam al-Ghazālī. Because if you go back to this work, you will see in the beginning, Imam al-Ghazālī talks about mathematical knowledge, which can be considered certain. So he says here, after asking, فَلَا بُدَّ مِنْ طَلَبِ حَقِيقَةِ الْعِلْمِ مَا هِيَ. So it is important to understand the reality of knowledge. فَظَهَرَ لِي, it appeared to me, أَنَّ الْعِلْمَ الْيَقِينِي, that the certain knowledge is هُوَ الَّذِي يَنْكَشِفُ فِيهِ الْمَعْلُومُ إِنْكِشَافًا لَا يَبْقَى مَعَهُ رَيْبٌ, is the knowledge in which the ma'lum, the thing which is known, the subject of knowledge, is manifested in a way that there remains no doubt with it. وَلَا يُقَارِنُهُ إِمْكَانُ الْغَلَطِ وَالْوَهْمِ, and there remains no possibility of mistake in understanding that ma'lum. بَلِ الْأَمَانُ مِنَ الْخَطَأِ يَنْبَغِي أَنْ يَكُونَ مُقَارِنًا لِلْيَقِينِ, but rather protection from mistake and doubt should remain with certainty. Okay, and then he gives the example of mathematics. He says, فَإِنِّي إِذَا عَلِمْتُ, because when I know أَنَّ الْأَشْرَةَ أَكْثَرُ مِنَ الثَّلَاثَةِ, the 10 is bigger than 3. فَلَوْ قَالَ لِي قَائِلٌ, if someone says to me, لا, no, this is not true, 10 is not bigger than 3, بَلِ الثَّلَاثَةُ أَكْثَرُ مِنَ الْعَشْرَةِ, but 3 is bigger than 10. بِدَلِيلِ إِنِّي أَنِّي أَقْلِبُ هَذَا الْعَصَى ثُعْبَانًا, by the evidence that I will turn this staff into a snake. وَقَلَبَهَا, and he does that. وَشَاهَدْتُ ذَلِكَ مِنْهُ, and I witness it. I witness staff changing into snake. لَمْ أَشُكَّ بِسَبَبِهِ فِي مَعْرِفَتِي, I should not doubt in my knowledge that 10 is bigger than 3. And if someone tells me 3 is bigger than 10, and I can prove it by changing this staff into snake, and he changes it, actually I witness it, I should not doubt in this knowledge, because 3 cannot be bigger than 10. And this is one of the standards for certain knowledge. He says certain knowledge is a type of knowledge in which doubt does not creep into it in any way. You never doubt it. there is no possibility of doubt or or waham in it. This is certain knowledge, and the best example of certain knowledge is mathematical calculations. Okay, so if someone tells me that I will change this staff into snake, and this will prove that 3 is greater than 10, I will not doubt it. Even if I see staff changing into snake, I will acknowledge it, and I will acknowledge the skill of this person, maybe a miracle or something, or magic, that he had changed the staff into a snake. I acknowledge that, but this does not prove that 3 is greater than 10. Okay. وَلَمْ يَحْصُلْ لِي مِنْهُ إِلَّا التَّعَجُّبُ مِنْ كَيْفِيَّةِ قُدْرَتِهِ عَلَيْهِ. The only thing which will be attained by me in witnessing a staff changing into snake is ta'ajjub, is astonishment. I will be astonished. How was he able to do it? وَأَمَّا الشَّكُّ فِيمَا عَلِمْتُهُ فَلَا. But doubting what I believe in, yani I believe that 10 is greater than 3, فَلَا. I will not doubt it, because he changed a staff into snake. Okay, so this is, and for Imam al-Ghazālī, the example which he gives is mathematical knowledge is the best form of knowledge, which can reach certainty. And Descartes says the same in his work. He emphasized mathematical and scientific fields over a purely liberal arts. So these are some points in explaining the educational philosophy of Rene Descartes, which has influenced the modern educational system. There is no doubt that these great Western philosophers were geniuses. Yani, basically, in understanding and criticizing them, we are not belittling them. They were geniuses. That's why they influenced the modern human thought. But we are only trying to understand these matters from our own Islamic perspective, from the perspective of Islamic worldview, so that we can engage with non-Islamic knowledge in a better way, so that we know what can we take to benefit and what can't be accepted. This is what this is the purpose of comparing and understanding. Okay, so we'll stop here in today's session. If you have interest, you can study the work of Descartes and also Imam al-Ghazālī. He talks about many things, and as we have said before, a particular philosopher has different manifestations, and in his thought, he may have focused on a particular mas'ala like epistemology in these works of Descartes, but there are different strands of thought which can be extracted from his philosophy, like his views about politics and so on and so forth. But we're not concerned about that. Our main purpose was to understand his basic claims in epistemology. We'll stop here. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us understanding. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enlighten our iman and protect our iman from doubt and desires. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by his beautiful names and exalted attributes to cure our sick and to forgive all our dead. We are in the month of Ramadan. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our fasts and qiyam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us tawfiq of worshipping and reaping the best benefits from this month. Ameen, ameen, ameen. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala nabi al-ummi.